Now, there is no question, no revisionist history, no question that during this past NBA season, there was a stretch of time where the Bulls looked really legit. They looked like they could be on the precipice of being contenders. And some folks, certainly like me, were pushing for the team to go all in, with the thought process being of, you never know what can happen from one year to the next. And if you're in a position, you got to maximize on it and take your swings now. And it's not like the Bulls are in a spot where they were trying to necessarily build for the future. Like, they've already done some things to indicate that they were trying to win now, so why not go all the way? They didn't. Then I think reality eventually caught up with this team, with all of us, as the season got along. They got exposed. And I know some are going to point to injuries and blame injuries, and they certainly didn't help. But come on. Like, even if everybody was healthy, this roster had some flaws that really showed late in the season. Lack of consistent three-point shooting, lack of post presence defensively, lack of ability to guard wings effectively. Like, there were several problems there for this Bulls team. And, you know, this is a team, as I referenced just a second ago, that kind of already sort of went in and said, now's your window. And that first piece of that going and saying, we're going to go after it now, was the trade for Nikola Vucevic at the deadline in 2021. And admittedly, the results are a mixed bag. I mean, just objectively, if you look at it right now as a Bulls fan, would you rather have Vucevic, or would you rather have Wendell Carter, Franz Wagner, and a 2023 first-round pick? Like, what you got out of Vucevic since he's come to Chicago, his shooting percentages are down, specifically from three. Like, this past season, he was horrendous from the perimeter. He's an inefficient number 3 scorer who folks like to focus on the double-double piece, but bullshit on that. That doesn't mean that much anymore in the NBA. Lots of guys get goddamn double-doubles. Give me a break. But he was a liability in pick-and-roll defense. He absolutely was. And when he wasn't hitting his shots from the outside, he didn't do a whole lot of good. Sure, he could help you space the floor, but eventually teams are sagging off him because they say, yeah, we'll let Vucevic shoot. Like, it was bad. So the Bulls find themselves in this odd spot where they have to know that even if everybody was healthy 100% of the time, like, the reality has been exposed. This core, this nucleus, is not a championship team. They just aren't. They kind of went all in to a degree, but not fully and completely, with a lot of pieces that really weren't all that. And not to mention, they're probably about to give Zach LaVine a max contract. Yippee! I'm sure that will go well. Then you got to think they're on the books for DeMar for, another $30 million or so the next couple of years. Well, that feels like a bargain at this point. But you've also got Lonzo Ball on the books for his 45 to 50 games a year, and you're paying him $20 million per for the next couple. You know, the reality is this team has multiple needs and limited flexibility to be able to do anything. So, obviously, as you get to this offseason and you're getting ready to get into kind of the free agency window where shit's going to hit the fan, you know, a lot of Bulls fans are saying, okay, it's time to go make something big happen, and I totally get it. And that's where the Rudy Gobert rumors come in. And on the surface, it seems to make a lot of sense. Here's a guy that's only 30 years old. He's a 3-time NBA All-Star. He's like, a 3-time second or third team All-NBA guy. He's a 3-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year, 6-time All-NBA Defense first team selection. Some of you probably are salivating at the thought of, if the team is healthy, you've got guys like Caruso and Ball defending on the perimeter, and then you've got Gobert defending down low. You got one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, and that absolutely would be the case. There's also a guy in Gobert that's led the NBA in field goal percentage 3 of the past 4 seasons. He's not only that, like, let's be real here. I grew up a Bulls fan. I grew up during the Jordan dynasty, the 90s Bulls. I saw dominance personified. And what Rudy Gobert did in March of 2020, even Jordan couldn't do that. Jordan owned the league for a decade. Rudy Gobert shut that motherfucker down for months. Like, he got COVID and shit stopped. You don't get more dominant than that. Rudy Gobert and COVID versus the league are a more vicious tag team than Vince McMahon and Johnny Ace John Laurinaitis. And if you get the reference, my props to you. Like, this motherfucker dominant. He shut the entire league down. He should win Defensive Player of the Year every year for the next century. And you gotta kind of like that in the center. So I get it. And, you know, when you look at the way it sets up for the Bulls, it would be a chance to get rid of Vucevic, who's going to be in the last year of his deal. You could send off Kobe White on his rookie contract, which is an expiring rookie contract, and you just don't really need Kobe White on this team, frankly. Like, he's unnecessary and not helpful. And if you could find another contract to throw in there, you know, whether that's going to be like include Derek Jones as some part of sign and trade, or maybe you have to throw Patrick Williams into the pot here, you know, like, it's a realistic situation to say that the Bulls could make it work to be able to bring a Rudy Gobert to Chicago. And Bulls fans look at that and they see a DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Rudy Gobert trio, and they say, you know what, let's run it back and try it with this iteration this time. And then be surprised when the results aren't really any different. Do you really want Rudy Gobert in Chicago? I get it. But for me, it's a just say no thing. For a couple of reasons. Number one, if you go out and get Rudy Gobert, that's basically it. Like, you maybe bring in mid-level exception pieces and other, like, vet minimum guys, but you're basically throwing your entire chances behind the core of DeMar, LaVine, Gobert, and assuming you don't have to trade Patrick Williams, you're hoping that Patrick Williams can become the third scorer, which is a big hope and want and wish at this point, but it is nothing more than that. You have absolutely nothing to base your thought process on if you think he can be that, other than hope, wish, and want, and pray that it happens. That's a lot to risk, a lot at chance. That's basically what you're saying your core is DeMar, Zach, Gobert, Lonzo Ball, and Patrick Williams. That's your starting five. Does that feel like a championship level starting five to you? Even when you look at the Eastern Conference, you look at the teams you probably have to be most worried about, or the players that you have to most be worried about. You'll say, well, Gobert could defend Embiid in the 76ers. Who the fuck's worried about the 76ers? They got goddamn Doc Rivers as their head coach. Give me a break. And they're about to probably give fat-ass Harden way too damn much over way too many cheeseburgers. You're worried about the Milwaukees and the Bostons and even to a lesser degree the Nets just because they have Kevin Durant. Gobert ain't helping you a lot with that. Number two, like for some of Vucevic's flaws defensively and frankly his past season offensively, there is also the notion that Vucevic was really good in terms of spacing the floor. He was a really good passer as a big man. He could do different things offensively. And Gobert doesn't do that. Like I mentioned him being a field goal percentage leader in the league 3 of the past 4 seasons, but that's on like 7 or 8 shot attempts a game. Like when you think about the Bulls offensively, Gobert, all he basically brings is a space eater who could clog the lane, which would cause some problems for a guy heavily dependent on his mid-range game like DeMar, and then a guy like Zach, assuming he recovers from the knee injury. You're talking about a guy who you want to be able to get to the rim and attack the rim more. Like, how does Gobert fit in with that? And then when you look at their offense, if you want to run pick and roll with Gobert, you can't really do pick and pop like you could with Vucevic. It's all pick and roll with Gobert. Like, how does he fit this offense? Like, everybody's going to focus on the defense, and yeah, the defense is fucking great. But this isn't 80s or 90s NBA basketball anymore. Offense wins championships, not defense, damn it. And that is a shit ton of money to pay a guy who's a limited offensive option, who could impact your offense negatively in other ways, even with all of the great things he could bring defensively. And speaking of money, like I said, you were basically tying yourself to Gobert and say, that's all that we can do. Because the next 4 years, he's due $38.1 million, $41 million, $43.8 million. Then he's got a player option at the end of the contract. You know goddamn good and well he's going to pick that up, being all of like age 33 at that point, for $46.6 million. That is a shit ton of money for this team to be considering going up into the luxury tax territory for Rudy Gobert. Is that what you really want, Bulls fans? Like I said, I understand some of the appeal, but when you remove yourself from that immediate reaction, that immediate emotion, you really think about it, is this dude the answer? I don't think so. And some of you are going to say, well, Vucevic isn't the answer. If Gobert isn't the answer, who the fuck is the answer? Well, and that's part of the fucking quandary, isn't it? Because I don't know with the iteration of the Bulls as they are and the way they're structured right now, that they can build and put together a championship team. I really don't. Without dramatically overhauling everything. They went in when they probably shouldn't have went in just then. Because the name of the game is not to be a 4 or 5 seed in the playoffs. The name of the game is to build yourself into a championship contending team. And the Bulls are much more of a 4 or 5 seed, even if they bring in a Rudy Gobert, than they are a true contending team at this point. Sorry, that's reality. So, you could be all hyped up about the thought. You could be wanting it to happen all you want. Just buyer beware here. If Rudy Gobert was such a damn difference maker, how come the Jazz didn't make more noise in the playoffs the past few years with him and Donovan Mitchell? And yes, Gobert is going to clog the paint on defense. He's going to be a presence. He's going to be, among the league leaders in rebounds. He's going to be among the league leaders in shot blocking. But he still doesn't help your immediate perimeter defense that much. So, no, I'm not really down with this. There was a moment in time where I was thinking like, hey, I might be. Nah, that ship has passed. Just say no to Rudy Gobert.